I am here at Whole Foods. It is absolutely gorgeous today. I could not have asked for a better day to do my running around. So, I have some more errands to run and I'm going to talk to you guys later. My last errand for the day. Yay! So, when I finish here, I think I have one more stop to make, and then I'm going home to make something special. You'll see what it is later. The recipe starts with 1 cup of milk, half a stick of butter, 1 cup of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of salt. And you want to put those in your saucepan and warm them up slowly. You don't want to get this mixture too hot, because if you end up getting this mixture too hot, it slows down the entire process, because you're going to need to add it to your flour later, and you're going to have to add in your eggs as well. And if it's too hot, and that's my yeast, if it is too hot, it will scramble the eggs, and then that will in turn mess up the whole recipe. You'll have to start over with your milk, sugar, salt mixture. So now I'm going to temper the eggs. I do that by adding a little bit of the milk mixture that has cooled some, added a little at a time to the eggs, and stir it in. And this brings the temperature of the eggs up to, makes it a little warmer, so that by the time you add the eggs to the milk, sugar, salt, butter mixture, the eggs will not scramble, because they're already warm enough to add safely to the mixture. So you go ahead and pour that into the mixture, and then once the eggs are added, then you can go ahead and add your yeast. I'm going to pour the yeast in, stir that in together. See how it looks frothy? That's actually a very good sign. That's a sign that the yeast is very active. And that's exactly what you want. That's my smoothie. So now we're going to make a mill of the flour, and then you take your wet ingredients and pour them into the middle of your flour, and you begin to stir. Now this mixture seems like it's going to be entirely too soupy, but that's okay. That's what the reserve bowl of flour is for. And you're going to stir that just to incorporate all those ingredients and mix all those flavors together. And you're going to make sure at this point that it is thoroughly mixed. Mix it, mix it, mix it, mix it. Stir it well. And then once this mixture, the wet and the dry ingredients are incorporated, we're going to add flour a little at a time. Add the flour, and we're going to stir, stir, stir. It is perfectly okay if at this point this mixture seems to be a little sticky to you. You know, that's fine, because what you don't want is you don't want to add too much flour, and then that yields tough, dry rolls. So it still does not have enough flour incorporated into the mixture yet to form a ball of dough. So I added a little more flour, and then at this point you want to add the flour and take a large spoon and scrape the mixture down from the sides of the bowl, adding flour just a little bit at a time. You don't want to add too much flour, because it's easier to be able to add a little more, and you can't take it out once it's in there. And so you're going to use your spoon to mix this flour into your dough. And at this point, you can see that I was almost able to add a ball of dough. And so after I added the proper amount of flour, I've got my dough just about ready. I'm just going to add a little more flour so that I can knead the dough properly. And I think this dough is perfect now. It is just the right consistency and texture. Dough should feel like a baby's bottom at this point. And it's okay if it's still a little sticky. I'm just going to add a little more flour just so I can knead it just a little more. But you still want your dough to be nice and moist and soft. It's kind of fun playing in the dough. And so now what I'm going to do is, my dough is ready. Take half a stick of melted butter, pour a little in the bottom of my bowl, pour my dough onto the butter, roll it around to coat it in the butter, pour the rest of the butter over the top of the dough, and roll this dough around in the butter to make sure all sides of the dough are coated in butter. Now, I do this just to make my dough more rich before I set it aside to let it rise. And at this point, you want to cover your bowl loosely, not tightly like I did in the video. I don't know what I was thinking, but you want to cover your bowl loosely and set it aside in a warm place to rise for 90 minutes. And here's my smoothie break because I am determined not to eat any rolls. Okay, now I let the dough rise for 1.5 hours, and so you can see that it has doubled in size. We're going to punch that down, let the air out of that dough, and I got a little extra. All the butter wasn't absorbed, it normally does, but no worries because I do not use flour to roll my dough out onto. Guess what I use? I use more butter, and that way I don't have to add any more flour to my dough. And that's why they make your booty big. I'm gonna roll that out. Roll this dough out, and you want to roll your dough about 1/2 inch thick. Right? Now normally at this point I add a little more butter, but seeing as how I don't think I need any more butter because the butter that I did add was not absorbed, and it normally did not absorb, it normally does, so I'm not going to add any more butter. At this point you want to roll your dough out about 1/2 inch thick. And yeah, I think that's good. This recipe makes 2 dozen rolls, and by the way, I sanitized my countertop with a little bleach, and then wiped it down with clean that off with a wet paper towel, and dry it. So at this point you want to take, this is my Make Your Booty Big roll cutting glass, but you want a nice, I don't know, 3-inch circumference mouth. And at this point you start. Okay, now that portion is done, and you see you're gonna fold them in half and lay them in the pan just like so. Normally, like I said, I dip them in butter and then fold them in half, but there was so much butter that wasn't absorbed at that last stage until I decided to skip that portion. I think they have enough butter in them. And this actually is 27 rolls instead of 24. And I had a little dough left over, so I made 4 clover leaf rolls. And the beauty of not adding too much flour at that last stage when you roll them out is that all of your dough stays nice and moist and pliable. Look at that. It's just like a baby's bottom. So you can use all of your dough. You don't have any tough bits that you end up having to throw away because they're too tough to roll out. And then the more tough your dough is, that makes it harder for it to rise. So we're gonna sit these aside for another hour and a half and let these rise, and then I will be back later. These rolls have doubled in size, as you can see, and I have my oven preheating. At this point, they've been rising for 90 minutes. You don't want to let them rise too long because the dough will get too many pockets of air in it, and then the dough will actually fall like a cake falls. And then the only thing to do at that point is to roll the dough out again, punch it down, roll it out, and reshape all of them again. And that would be a terrible waste. Now, once I turn on the oven, once I pop these in the oven, they're gonna rise even higher. So let's get these babies in the oven. All right. I wish y'all could smell this bread baking. Oh my goodness, it is ridiculous. It smells like a bakery. I can smell the butter. I should be able to smell the butter. God knows there's enough butter in this bread. It's one reason why I stopped making this bread, because it is not at all good for you. I wanted to mention to you though that you can also make cinnamon rolls with the same dough. You want to cut the amount of sugar in the recipe in half if you do make cinnamon rolls with it. And we'll be back when they're almost done. We'll be back when they're done. Here is the finished product. I baked these on 350. I don't really time them. I just kind of, you can touch them, you know. I baked them for at least 30 minutes until they're kind of firm that you can't push a dent into them. You know, you don't want to obviously push down too hard, but don't they look wonderful? Oh my goodness. There, my timer went off. That was 30 minutes. Alrighty. I hope you guys enjoyed your time with me today. Let me know if you tried this recipe. Alright? See you soon.